So basically what I'm arguing here is that the perpetuation of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is of basically is a strategic harm for U.S. interests in a very serious way that U.S. Policymakers should take seriously. And the last thing on the size of the lobby. Basically you have polls that are taken of Congress and their staffers who basically consistently show that they view the Israel lobby as one of the most influential lobbies in Congress. Bill Clinton referred to them as, basically said AIPAC was, that AIPAC lobby is better than anybody else does in Washington. So you have this recognition on behalf of Congress that the Israel lobby is influential. And so if it is correct, as I and most Americans think it is, that U.S. policy, generally speaking, is over-influenced by lobbies, and then you add to that the fact that Congress acknowledges that the Israel lobby is of tremendous influence, it follows that the Israel lobby does have significant influence on policy. And the last thing I want to point out is the Israel lobby boasts of its ability to defeat people running for political office, basically, who do not toe the line. I mean, there are countless statements by AIPAC members and many others who basically say, you know, we've cost so-and-so the election, and, you know, we hope that people will get the message now. And you can actually see that in effect when you look at presidential candidates falling over each other, trying to portray themselves as extremely supportive of Israel for the obvious reasons. And I'm thinking if a lobby has that much control over the political survival of people running for office and in Congress, then they de facto, if not ipso facto, have an influence over policy because nobody can, you know, basically take on a policy that the lobby would consider unacceptable.
Well, again, I have only a small factual disagreement and agree with the main thrust. The factual disagreement has to do with the power of the lobby. And here I won't go through the details, but I just suggest that you look at Stephen Zunis's careful, detailed analysis of it, which shows that there's almost no effect on candidates running for office. The most passionate supporters of Israel are mostly in safe districts, like in Nancy Pelosi. You know, nobody's going to run against them. And the lobby has basically no effect. Of course, they claim to have an effect. The Armenian lobby will also claim to have an effect. And you can find 2 or 3 scattered cases. But basically on Congress, the effect is very marginal. Now, it's true, as you say, that Congress thinks of the lobby as very powerful. But that's the reason for that is that the real lobbies, they just take for granted. Like they're not going to tell you that the business lobby's powerful or the, you know, the telecommunications lobby or the farm lobby. I mean, sure, that's what we're here for. We work for them. They're not powerful. That's who we are. You know, Clinton's not going to say the telecommunications lobby won the 1990. I shifted policy in 1996 to win the election because of funding from them. He did. But you don't talk about that because that's the way the system works. You know, there's nothing to discuss. That's like saying I'm breathing air or something. So sure, they don't refer to the real lobbies. But as far as the rest is concerned, you were actually giving an argument in favor of what I said, I think. If I don't happen to agree with you on the analysis of the situation entirely, but suppose we accept your analysis completely. The U.S. policy with regard to Israel-Palestine is harming the interests of the few big interests who run the country, okay, like the ones I mentioned, Lockheed Martin, ExxonMobil, Intel, Microsoft, Hewlett-Packard, all the ones who seem to be very happy with the present situation. So U.S. policy is actually harming their interests. Well, there is a tactical consequence, namely, we're wasting our time here. We should be going to their offices and explaining to them that this marginal lobby, which they can put out of business in 30 seconds, is harming their interests, as if they can't figure it out for themselves. But since they somehow can't figure it out for themselves, we'll explain it to them. And then it's over. As far as the induced passivity, try to find an argument against that tactical consequence. I've been brought up to Walt Mearsheimer many times. No answer, because there is no answer. If it was harming their interests, they would do something about it. What they are doing about it is supporting just what I described, the increasing investments in Israel. I think it's fine. Maybe some minor nuisances here and there, but they do it. As far as making people passive, I think the opposite is true. If you convince people that the lobby is all-powerful, then there's nothing much to do about it. We can't stop the lobby from functioning. If you think it's the U.S. government which is following certain policies that we don't like, there's a lot that we can do about it. We could turn this into a functioning democracy in which popular opinion matters. And it's not just on this issue, but on a whole range of other issues. And that's what we should be doing.
You are watching a mini debate on the Israel lobby between Professor Noam Chomsky and Omar Baddar, part of a conference sponsored by ADC-MA on U.S. policy in the Middle East. We'll be back with more of the debate after this short program ID. You are watching The Arabic Hour, a program of news, views, culture, cuisine, and the Arab American experience. To watch today's program or any of our previous programs, log on to www.arabic.hour.org. And now, back to our program.
I'm just going to ask that people who have questions raise their hand, and when I call on, please stand and speak as loudly as you can. I know sometimes we have to set up our questions with a couple of facts. If you have to do that, try to limit it to 30 seconds, 45 seconds. So, and I'm going to try to call around the room. Why don't we go here, and then here, and then here.
Yeah, it seems to me that the most powerful part of the lobby is the fact that they can attack people in academia, people who write about Palestinian rights and about what Israel is doing, people who try to organize to do something about it. That's where the lobby is really powerful and very effective, and trying to keep people from getting tenured, all the kinds of things that they've been doing. So that's where we in our organizations, we struggle with them all the time. The United States government's not struggling with them, we are. So that's one point I want to make. The other is that Noam keeps mentioning Stephen Zunis, and I just want to announce that he's going to be speaking at Tufts on April 25th and 26th. Oh. There's a conference organized by New England United, and I urge you all to come, and you can look up New England United website. There'll be more information about it there.
On the first point, just a brief comment. As you mentioned, Walton Mearsheimer gives several definitions of the lobby. One of them is the narrow one, which I agree you focused on. There's another one that they give, which is that the lobby is just those people who dedicate themselves to supporting Israel's interests no matter what. Well, the problem with that definition, it includes practically the whole intellectual community after 1967, not before. But after 1967, when Israel performed a real service to the United States, the intellectuals just had a love affair with Israel. So I mentioned Dissent before, the Democratic Socialist Journal. If you check it before 1967, Israel's barely mentioned, or maybe mentioned with contempt. Afterwards, you get Michael Walzer and Irving Howe and passionate Zionists. Take a journal, take, say, Norman Podhoretz. You can't get a more extreme advocate. Take a look at his book, Making It, which was published in early 1967. Norman Finkelstein, who's a very assiduous researcher, went through all this, and he made some interesting discoveries. He doesn't even mention Israel, doesn't care. 1967, it turns out there's a big turn. And when you talk about pressure on universities, no university has to submit to AIPAC pressure. They do it if the majority of the faculty agree that that's what they want to do. Otherwise, they can tell them to get lost. So we're now talking about the lobby in the large sense of the word, which includes the media. The lobby doesn't influence New York Times editorials. We're just talking about the educated world at large, which almost reflexively supports U.S. government policy, except in narrow ways. Can't give a principled objection, and supports Israel insofar as it's perceived to be, associated with fundamental U.S. interests. So that's a real struggle. I agree with you, a major one. But I don't and it's true that the lobby's in the forefront because they're the ones who launched the vilification and the slanders and so on and so forth. But they can be blocked if it weren't that they were supported by the general community. So it's a battle, and a serious one.
Nancy?
Just a quick question. Now, would you say something about Lebanon at this moment? People in southern Lebanon are convinced there's going to be an invasion, and we do have those American ships hovering there. And I wonder if you have any insights.
Well, I don't know anything other than what I read. There are reports in the Israeli press now that Syrian army is mobilizing in preparation for a possible Israeli attack, and the scenario that they talk about is a Hezbollah action in retaliation for the Mughniya assassination in Damascus, which they and many others blame on Israel. And it's clear that Israel's been sort of itching for a chance to invade again and do what they failed to do last time, harm Hezbollah. They probably helped.